Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here's your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Well, good morning. Happy Sunday to you, and welcome to another Sunday morning at Faith in Our Hometown. We're glad you joined us this morning for another discussion about areas of interest to us as people of faith in the greater Joplin area. My guest this morning is going to be one of those guests that I drove past this place for a long time, just wondering what in the world they did. If you're ever coming down North Main, you'll see a sign as you're getting ready to come into Joplin out of Webb City that talks about ARM Prison Ministry, ARM Prison Ministry. And my guest today is going to be the director of that program. And so I was wondering for years about, well, what the heck did they do there? And do we even have any prisons? And what's that all about? So we're going to get together and talk about some of those things with Joe Garman, who is the director there of ARM Prison Outreach. So this is we're going to be right back after this emergency minute, so stick around and we'll be right back.
I was in shock, and in denial, and I couldn't believe it was me. I was healthy, feeling well, but unbeknownst to me, after the colonoscopy, I found out that I had colon cancer. My name is Mario Guerrero. I'm an ethicist. I help people that are in a hospital and the medical staff process some of the difficult situations. In this case, it was the other way around.
Well, I'm glad I caught it earlier.
On my 50th birthday, I had a regular checkup. I wasn't concerned because I felt well. No family history of this type of cancer, and yet I developed this type of cancer. During the process of the colonoscopy, they were able to remove that polyp. And having that done within the hospital setting, they can just address all the issues right there and then. I'm a great believer in early detection. This is such a silent disease, and you really don't necessarily have symptoms. Go get checked. Follow up with your physician. Don't wait.
Well, again, thank you for joining us for another Sunday morning of Faith in Our Hometown. My guest this morning, Joe Garman, who is the director at the American Rehabilitation Ministries Prison Outreach.
Yes.
So, Joe, welcome to you.
Thank
Why don't you
you.
tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you got started in this ministry?
Well, I would first of all like to thank you for your ministry
Oh, well, you're quite
and
welcome.
for allowing me to be a part of it this morning.
We're happy to do it. It's I believe in us getting along well and living well together in peace, goodwill, and in love. And so regardless what anybody's background comes from, I believe that we have a vested interest in our community to make sure we can do exactly that. So I'm glad, but we're glad to have you.
Thank
So
you.
how did ARM get started, and how long have you been doing this?
I graduated from Ozark Christian College in 1966
Okay.
and went into full-time evangelism. Back in the day, they used to have a lot of revivals, but not so many anymore. But
We do revivals just kind of a different way today, don't we? Yeah.
more, we call them evangelistic efforts.
There you go.
But somehow one of my brochures advertising my revivals made it to Korea.
Okay.
And there was a missionary there, John J. Hill, who wanted to come home for furlough. And in those days, they had what was called mission setting. It was just like babysitting, except you set for the mission.
So you'd go substitute for a while for somebody, right? Uh-huh.
And so I went over for a year. I was 24 years old. And for a 24-year-old to get to go to South Korea, that was an awesome experience.
Sure.
And got married just before I went over, which was a good thing because Korean people like to see married couples on the mission field. And although I had a beautiful ministry there, the Lord called me into working in the Korean prisons. There was no missionaries working in the Korean prison system at that time.
Okay.
And this is probably 1967, 1968. And so I went into the prison in Daejeon, Korea, and I was converted instantly into the need to preach the gospel to prisoners.
Because you knew they needed to hear it.
Oh, there was nobody doing it.
Yeah.
So I took some of the Korean preachers with me, and we started prison ministry in Korea. A few years later, I returned here to America, now that I had learned how to do some of this, and started what was called the American Rehabilitation Ministries. We headquartered it right here in Joplin because I was under the overlook of the Revival Fires ministry. Do you remember the Revival Fires?
I don't know.
Okay, Cecil Todd and the Revival Fires. And then later, I left Revival Fires and started my own prison outreach.
Okay.
And today we're in all 50 states of America, all 5 territories, and we have 6 branch ministries overseas.
Okay. So mostly you're United States and Canada, but you got a few other branches,
Right,
across the ocean.
right. Still have one in Korea. We still support that work there.
Cool. So what is it exactly that you do? Just, you're sitting here in Joplin. We don't have any, prisons per se. We certainly got jails and things like that. But so what is it that you do from here?
We do an outreach program called the American Bible Academy, where that we enroll prisoners in our Bible correspondence school.
Okay.
Most of our courses have been written by Ozark Christian College and Atlanta Christian College professors, and we have just over 15,000 prisoners enrolled in this school.
Wow.
8 different courses we offer them. They're all Bible-based courses like Mark or Acts or Christian doctrine, that sort of thing. And then we have a sister school in Arizona that when the prisoner has finished with our 8 courses, which are each 120 pages, not small courses, when he or she has finished with that, then they're automatically enrolled in our sister school in Phoenix.
Okay. So kind of like a, home study or correspondence kind of a
Exactly.
thing. Yeah, which
Yes,
is great.
that's right.
But men and women can do that from prison, obviously.
Yes.
So does the curriculum or does the content, is it aimed a little bit more for, is it just generic Christian, or is it aimed for folks who are actually in an incarceration experience?
No, it's not aimed for the prisoner at all.
Okay.
And they appreciate that. We treat them just like anyone else we would be ministering to.
Sure.
But we do require a 70% completion rate on the course. Some of them, of course, were failures in school at the same time they were failures in society. So they can't make 70%, maybe. We ask them, would you like to take the course over again? And you would think, being a prisoner, they would say, no, I'm not going to take the course over. But no, that's not the majority of the
A lot of them just want to
response.
learn it.
They
Sure.
want something that they have succeeded at. And so they take the course over again, and in the majority of cases, they do quite well and end up with a certificate. Beautiful certificate that they can take to their parole board and show the parole board what they've been doing while they've been incarcerated.
That's great. It's interesting. I find this so interesting that we got, like the start out of this again in Missouri. There's you may or may not be aware, we also have a Catholic program. It's not aimed for prisoners, but certainly for anyone who wants to do any home study. That's the Catholic Home Study, again sponsored by the Knights of Columbus, which is an international organization, a Catholic men's organization, and it's all written and produced out of Perryville, Missouri, over on the east side of the state. So I think that that's interesting that little old Missouri is figuring out a way to to do some of this instruction.
That's right.
In ways that are helpful to people, because this is like. Ours kind of do the same thing. It's a non-threatening way to be introduced to, aspects of Scripture, or aspects of the church, or aspects of whatever. And it's interesting that that they have that opportunity. So this is great. So how many years have you been doing the in prison? How many years have you been doing the correspondence courses?
We started the correspondence courses in 1973.
Okay.
So about 45 or 46
Yeah,
years.
which is great. Yeah. So you got several. You said there are 8. So
8.
they can just go at it as much as they want. And then there's the follow-up for any of the ones that want to get into the the next tier, if you will.
That's right.
That's wonderful. So so that's what, so that's what I like. So how big is ARM? What do you, I mean, like how big is your staff? I mean,
We have 10 employees
Okay.
and 135 volunteers.
All right here in Joplin.
Well, in the 4-state area.
Okay, that's great.
This is a perfect place for a ministry like ours because we draw people from Oklahoma and Kansas and Arkansas. They are not all there one day,
Sure, right. I get it. Yeah.
But in a month's time, there'll be 135 people come in and out of our doors at ARM, helping us prepare courses for shipping and the other programs that we have. They help with those too.
Well, that's great. So, in terms of that, is that the only thing you do is the correspondence courses? You do other things as well?
No, we also have the world's largest greeting card ministry to prisons. Yeah. Now, when I first started this work, I learned that one of the great needs prisoners had was a way to write to their families. A lot of prisoners had no stationery. They had no envelopes to put the stationery in. And I was at Siloam Springs, Arkansas, and was telling one of the ministers there about this problem. He was a friend to Day Spring Outreach, who's headquartered in Siloam Springs. And they were the largest Christian card company in the world.
Right.
So he arranged for a meeting between me and Don Leach and to the head of Day Spring to meet together and see if we couldn't work together in getting these cards to the prisoners. So Day Spring was...
So cards, like cards to them or cards from them to go other direction?
We would send them to them, and then the chaplain would see that the prisoners got the cards.
Okay,
And-
so in other words, if I just wanted to, so somebody just wanted to write to a prisoner, somebody who happened to be in prison.
No. These went into the prisons for the prisoners to use.
To be able to write out
That's
to their
right,
family,
that's
their
right.
friends. Okay, good. Yeah, because I got to tell you, one of our parishioners at St. Peter's has been incarcerated for a while, and there are all kinds of rules about how that stuff can go. Like I can't send him cards, at this particular federal prison, I cannot send him cards. I have to. It has to go on loose leaf paper, and that's the way that part works. And then then he can receive it. But I mean, I kept getting stuff back until I finally learned all the rules. And of course, now they've changed them on me a couple times. But nonetheless, we got to do certain things a certain way. But this is for the prisoners to be able to send cards to their families and loved ones and people who might otherwise need that. Good.
Otherwise, it would undercut Day Spring's sales here on the outside.
Right. So my guest this morning is Joe Garman. He is the director of American Rehabilitation Ministries Prison Outreach. And we're talking about a locally developed ministry here to reach out to prisoners, both here in the United States and in other parts of the world. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and continue to talk about that important work that happens right here in Joplin. Stick around.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Again, thanks for sticking around and being with us for another Sunday morning. My guest this morning, Joe Garman of American Rehabilitation Ministries Prison Outreach. So we talked a little bit about the card ministry, where you can give prisoners the ability to reach out to their family and friends, other people they want to correspond with. We certainly talked about the correspondence courses, but you guys got plenty of other things that you're up to too. So tell us some more.
Well, when we first came to America from Korea, now over in Korea, there was no problem with baptizing the men and women in prison because they have these huge bathhouses.
Right. Yeah.
Big enough for like 30 or 40 people to get into.
Sure.
And I was young, so I would get in them. Today, I don't know if I would or not. But when we came to America, my first revival, prison revival, was at Leavenworth Federal in Leavenworth, Kansas. And at the close of the revival, I invited the men to come forward to make a confession of faith. And I said, now tomorrow night we're going to have baptismal services. And after the service was over, the chaplain came up to me and he said, Brother Joe, I wished you would not have told them that we were going to have baptismal services. He said, we have no baptistry. So thank God that laundry carts hold water. We baptized a lot of prisoners in laundry carts, children's wading pools, you name it, and we used it. And finally, ARM built our own baptistry shop here in town, right behind our building. And we've now placed some 5,700 baptistries here in America and in some 28 countries around the world.
I'm going to tell a little story here. When I first came here, I like to do, especially for Easter when adults come into the church. We do a lot of infant baptisms, but once a year especially, we try to prepare any of our adults. And I was trying to figure out some kind of a solution, and we didn't have time to build anything right away. So when I was first here, we got a little baptistry from there because it was portable. We could set it up, decorate around it, use it for Easter, and then after Easter was over, we'd take it down and do our thing. So we did exactly that, and so we used one of your portable baptistries at St. Peter's for a little while until we renovated and put in a more permanent solution for us at that point in time. So I was grateful that you were in business and that's what you did, because that's what I was looking for at the time.
Well, great.
Yeah, but I think it's even great that you can certainly do that. And send those to places that need a portable solution. I think that's wonderful. Started obviously out for prison ministry, but obviously it works for folks who have a need for a portable thing. So you manufacture those and build those here.
We do.
Yeah, which I was just like, okay, right here in Joplin. Who knew? So what else? What else you got up your sleeve over there at ARM?
Well, now this is my little corner of the world. I go actually into the prisons and conduct See Through the Scriptures seminars. These take 8 hours to complete. We usually do them in 4 2-hour sessions. And we start in the book of Genesis and walk right through the Old Testament and into the life of Christ in 8 hours. We use overhead transparencies.
You're doing it fast.
I know. But prisoners, you have to do what you're going to do fast because they're not used to sitting still,
There you go.
But we have an organized program. They all have workbooks. Most prisoners know different stories, different verses, and all of them can quote from Psalm 23. Isn't that interesting?
It's good.
But they don't know if Moses or Noah came first. They know some stories, but that's about it. So the purpose of this seminar is to give them a big picture of what the Bible is all about. That the Old Testament is the New Testament concealed, and that the New Testament is the Old Testament revealed. See? It's one continuous story.
Right.
And you should just see their eyes come alive when they realize that this is all one continuous story from Genesis clear into the book of Revelation.
Yeah, and it's I'm always fascinated by this. Is that I think if you can figure out some way of, not just for prisoners, but for just your general person who's hungry for something, if you can get your opportunity to start breaking that down for folks and sharing that story in ways that can keep their imagination, it's always a kind of an amazing thing. I just am amazed at how hungry people are for that, because despite the fact that they can maybe know this story, or they remember this, or they remember that little piece. And even for for Catholics, I mean, I know that I can feed them the beginning of a quote and they can finish it off. Now they have a hard time saying where it's at and all that kind of good stuff. But we give everybody this intro to the scriptures. But I think that when you can kind of almost tease them into exploring what's more there, it's an amazing thing how hungry people are.
Yes.
And I think that that's especially true the more you need the stories, or the more you search for them. And I think that some of our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated certainly get hungry for that, because they want to know the story.
Yes.
And somebody's paying enough attention to come into them.
Yes.
And share it with them, which I think is wonderful.
Yes.
So where do you do these?
Well, you see, every prison with 400 or more prisoners has a chaplain.
Right.
And chaplains are like preachers in the churches. You can go around them one time, but you're not going to do it again, They are the ones
They'll come in and like, okay, that was nice. Thank you very much. Yeah.
They are the ones who organize everything inside the prison chapel.
Right.
And so we work, and always have, with the chaplains. A lot of chaplains appreciate our conservative approach to the scriptures, and they want us to come in and teach the Bible to their prisoners. So we go wherever we're invited to go. Now, I just finished a program out in Colorado, Delta, Colorado, and that was a minimum security prison. So in your minimum security prisons, of course, it's totally different than the one I did just a week before down in Arkansas, where it was a medium security. See, there's a difference between medium security and minimum security. And of course, maximum security is even tougher.
Yeah.
But we go in, and we have to read our audience, and we do this during the first two-hour session. And then we proceed on the schedule that they are able to receive.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the prison chaplains helps you figure that whole thing out.
Oh, yes.
Get you all set up and get ready to roll.
Yeah, you don't go anywhere without asking the chaplain. You don't even stand in one part of the chapel by yourself without the chaplain's permission, because it's just that dangerous in there.
Yeah.
But in the 40-some years I've been doing this, I've had far more dangerous experiences outside the walls than I ever had inside the walls.
Back when I was in Springfield many years ago, one of the places we would go for Mass was the Federal Medical Center for prisoners.
Yeah.
And I'll just never forget that whole thing about going through that security, and all of a sudden realize, oh my gosh, that door just shut behind me. I'm locked in here. But then knowing at least that I could at least ask to leave, and that I could, was a completely, but just that it's almost like like this little feeling of claustrophobia centers around you when suddenly they're closing those big doors. It's like you see it roll shut and clang shut, and you're like, oh my goodness, Yeah. So it's amazing. I know one of my associates here, Father Chaz Dunn, who's been in Joplin now just since the beginning of the summer. He, when he was involved in the seminary, did prison ministry.
Okay.
As part of their seminary training, he and several others would go and to do some of the prison ministry, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, but I'm amazed at the reception that those guys get by doing, by taking their time and spending it and giving it to some of the prisoners, and then watching the prisoners as they respond. We got a couple minutes here before we get to our wrap up, but what's been the most significantly rewarding pieces of this whole thing for you? You've been doing this for many, many years now, prison ministry.
Well, one other thing I need to tell you about our program, and that is that about 20 years ago, the American Bible Society out of New York City, they sharpened their pencils and found out how much they were paying to ship Bibles from New York City to Missouri, to Texas, to wherever. And they started looking for a prison ministry that was centrally located in America, that could go north, south, east, and west cheaper than they could go from New York City.
Yeah.
So we had already been working with Dayspring for about 20 years at that time. We had our shipping and receiving down. The chaplains were used to dealing with us. And so it was just a natural for us to expand our shipping and receiving.
And then just do some of that too.
Yeah.
So you make sure that they get scriptures at those local
Yes.
areas, and you can do that from a central spot here.
We do put about 135,000 Bibles in the prisons each year, all compliments of the American Bible Society.
Amazing. All this happening right here in Joplin. I find that always fascinating when we get below the surface and find out who's out there doing stuff.
And might I say that we have 135 volunteers coming into our ministry, but we can always use more. So
there you go.
If there are ladies groups, youth groups, men's groups who want to come and volunteer, now we don't keep the building open at night.
Okay.
But in the daytime,
But we can do that,
they
and
can
I
come.
will get that information. We'll get that to you right after this Mercy Minute. We'll be right back.
A new baby changes the world and each of us. The Sisters of Mercy devoted themselves to offering exceptional maternity and delivery care, training generations of nurses to do the same. Mercy continues to answer the same call, to not only care for your baby, but to cherish them too. Mercy, in every era, your life is our life's work. Learn why we serve at mercy.net/legacy. When they discovered there was no hospital, the Sisters of Mercy built one, as they had so many times before, offering healing and hope on the edge of the frontier. Mercy continues to answer the same call, to bring care wherever you or your child need it most. Mercy, in every era, your life is our life's work. Learn why we serve at mercy.net/legacy.
Well, again, thank you for joining us for another Sunday morning of Faith in Our Hometown. I do want to say that if you're interested in helping volunteer for ARM, you can reach them at 781-9100 or at www.arm.org. Okay, so 781-9100 or www.arm.org. Again, it's amazing that we have these little ministries in Joplin that ripple out to the rest of the world. American Rehabilitation Ministries outreach is certainly one of those. God bless. Thanks for joining us for another Sunday morning, and I hope the rest of your Sunday is absolutely fantastic. God bless.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.